Have you ever felt the weight of the night pressing so heavily on your chest that even breathing feels like a battle? That moment when silence is loud, when your thoughts scream louder than the world outside, when the future seems like a wall with no door. These are the dark times that no one wants to speak about, yet every soul experiences. And in those moments, when despair whispers that you are alone, there is a voice older than time itself, a light that has guided broken hearts for centuries. The words from the Quran. Few people realize this, but within these divine words lies a secret that has carried prophets through storms, lifted nations from ruin, and healed wounds so deep that no human comfort could reach them. This secret has been hidden in plain sight, and yet so many walk past it every single day. The Quran is not just a book, it is the living heartbeat of hope, the rope of Allah thrown into the abyss to pull you out when your soul feels buried under the weight of fear, betrayal, guilt, and endless sorrow. You are not watching this by accident. If your eyes and ears have found this message, it is because Allah has guided you here. Perhaps He is answering a prayer you made in whispers, a plea no one else heard but Him. Maybe this very moment is the turning point your heart has been longing for, the reminder that the Most Merciful has not abandoned you. In this video, Hope in Dark Times, Words from the Quran, we will step into stories that are not just tales of the past, but mirrors of your own struggles today. The fear of Musa at the sea, the loneliness of Maryam beneath the palm tree, the betrayal of Yusuf in the well, the patience of Ayub in his sickness, and the burden carried by our beloved prophet when revelation first descended. Each story carries within it a verse, a lifeline, a divine reminder that transforms despair into resilience and fear into serenity. But I will not reveal it all at once. There is a journey ahead, a journey that requires your heart, your faith, and your willingness to see your pain through a new lens. Along the way, I will show you how these verses are not distant echoes, but living promises, breathing hope into your darkest nights. Because what you are about to hear may not only change how you see your struggles, it may very well change the course of your life. Stay with me until the end. What Allah has revealed about your pain is something you cannot afford to miss. The secret of true peace lies hidden in the words from the Quran, and tonight you will discover why the most powerful light shines brightest in the darkest times. Before we dive deeper into these revelations, pause for a moment. Breathe in. Say softly, Bismillah. This is not just another video, this is a sacred space. You are not here by coincidence. Allah has guided you to these words from the Quran because He knows the heaviness in your heart. He knows the battles you fight in silence, and perhaps He has chosen this very moment to remind you that hope is never lost, even in the darkest times. I want to ask you something profound. Will you declare your faith openly? Write in the comments, I trust Allah with my heart. This is not just a comment. This is your public act of faith, a statement written on the page of destiny that you choose to place your trust in the one who never abandons. And when you do, you will inspire others who are silently struggling to do the same. If these words are touching your soul, then press the like button, not as a click, but as an act of sadaqah jariyah. Every like allows this reminder of Allah to reach someone else who may be drowning in despair, someone who desperately needs this light but cannot find it. Imagine being the reason another heart discovers hope in dark times, and do not remain alone. Join this community of souls who seek the same refuge you do. Subscribe, because here you will find what your heart has been yearning for: connection, guidance, and a reminder that you are never walking this path by yourself. We are a family of believers, lifting one another through the words from the Quran. Do not leave. Allah revealed something profound about your struggles, and you need to hear it before this video ends. Perhaps the very ayah that will break your chains is only moments away. Stay until the end, because what is coming next may be the answer to the prayer you made in tears. The desert was silent for only a moment before the sound of hooves shattered it. The dust rose behind them, thick, choking, filling their lungs with the reminder that death was closing in. Pharaoh's army was not just approaching, it was devouring the distance with terrifying speed. Iron chariots gleaming under the sun, soldiers shouting with hatred, their weapons clashing as if the sound itself was meant to paralyze hearts. And before them, the sea, endless, black, waves rising and crashing as though mocking the weakness of those who stood on its shore. Mothers clutched their children, whispering prayers through sobs. The elderly fell to their knees, their voices trembling with hopelessness. Some shouted at Musa in desperation, "We are overtaken. There is no way out. We are finished." Can you stand there in your mind? Close your eyes. Feel the dry sand under your feet, the trembling of the earth with every strike of Pharaoh's horses, the cold spray of the sea hitting your face. Your chest tightens. Your mouth goes dry. You cannot move. This is the essence of anxiety. It is not just an emotion. It is being trapped between a past that hunts you and a future that terrifies you with no visible path forward. That night at the Red Sea is the eternal image of what it feels like when your fear convinces you that tomorrow has already destroyed you. And then came the words, not whispered, not hesitant, steady, unshakable, cutting through panic like a sword of light. Musa raised his voice and declared, "Indeed, my Lord is with me. He will guide me." Qur'an 20:16-62. Do you understand the weight of that moment? Nothing had changed. The army was still charging, the waves were still roaring, the people were still trembling. The path had not yet appeared. But Musa declared certainty before relief. This is the heartbeat of tawakkul, trusting in Allah's promise while the sea is still closed, while fear is still screaming, while every voice around you says there is no way. And this is the mirror of your life. How many times have you faced your own Red Sea, the stack of bills you cannot pay, the doctor's diagnosis that steals your sleep, the loneliness that eats at your chest in the silence of the night, the future that stretches before you like an ocean of uncertainty, and behind you the weight of all your failures, all your regrets, all the voices telling you you cannot survive. You freeze, you panic, you whisper, "This is the end." But let me ask you something uncomfortable. Do you really believe Allah has abandoned you in those moments? Do you really believe your anxiety means you are weak in faith? Or is it possible that anxiety is the battlefield where faith is forged, where illusions of control are shattered, where you finally see that nothing and no one can rescue you except Allah? People say, "Don't worry, time heals everything." But time did not stop Pharaoh's army. Time did not part the sea. Time does not silence anxiety. Only Allah does. Only His command transforms fear into safety. Think again about Musa. He was not a man without fear. He was human, like you. But when the weight of his people's despair pressed down on him, he declared certainty in Allah's presence. "My Lord is with me." That is the antidote to anxiety. Not certainty in yourself, not certainty in the world, certainty that Allah is near, closer than your heartbeat, already writing the path you cannot see. Anxiety tells you that your future is darkness. The Qur'an tells you that your future is already written by the Most Merciful. Anxiety says the waves will drown you. The Qur'an says the waves obey His command. Anxiety whispers, "You are alone." The Qur'an responds, "My Lord is with me." Which voice will you believe? Picture it once more. The screams of the people around you, the crashing of the waves, the roar of the army, and then the impossible, the command of Allah. The staff strikes, the sea trembles, the waters rise into walls, towering on both sides, leaving a dry path stretching into freedom. Imagine stepping onto that path, the ground firm beneath your feet, the air heavy with awe, the silence of disbelief turning into tears of relief. What you thought was death became life. What you thought was the end became salvation. What you thought would drown you became your bridge. This is the truth of Qadr. Relief is never early, never late. It comes at the exact moment Allah decrees. The people thought they were finished, but Allah had already written their deliverance. And maybe your anxiety is the same. Maybe the suffocation you feel is not punishment, but preparation. Maybe He is bringing you to the edge of your Red Sea so you can witness His power in your own life. How many times has anxiety lied to you? How many nights did you believe you would not make it through, yet here you are, alive, breathing, carried by His mercy? How many times did you fear disasters that never came to pass? Anxiety builds prisons out of shadows, but Allah's words tear them down. Write in the comments, "I believe. Allah can open the sea before me." This is not just text, it is your shield against whispers. It is your declaration that Allah is greater than fear. It is your testimony, your public act of faith, and it might ignite hope in someone else reading who is drowning silently. But here lies a secret most people overlook. Allah did not part the sea when they were still comfortable. He did not split the waters when there were still human solutions. He waited until they were pressed to the edge, until every illusion was gone, until the only option left was surrender. And then, at that very moment, the miracle came. That is how divine relief works. It is never random. It is always perfectly timed. And maybe your anxiety is pressing you to that exact edge, the place where Allah wants you to see that He alone is sufficient. So the next time your chest tightens and your thoughts spiral, pause, breathe. Imagine yourself at the Red Sea. Let the fear come, and then declare with Musa, "My Lord is with me. He will guide me." Say it until your heart believes it. Say it until your soul finds calm, because the same Lord who opened the sea then is the one who hears you now. And here is the disruptive truth. What if anxiety is not weakness, but mercy? What if anxiety is the place where Allah pulls you away from dependence on the world and teaches you to depend on Him alone? What if anxiety is the doorway to transformation, the stage for your miracle? Anxiety says your story is ending. The Qur'an says your story is only beginning. Anxiety says you will drown. The Qur'an says the sea will carry you to freedom. Which truth will you choose? Relax your shoulders. Take a deep breath. Imagine the sound of waves pulling back, the light of guidance shining through, the impossible becoming possible. You are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. The Qur'an is not just words of the past. It is the living rope of Allah, entering your storm, commanding it to be still. And every time you say Musa's words, you step into that reality. But this is only one face of human pain. If anxiety about tomorrow suffocates you, there is another wound that pierces even deeper: betrayal. What happens when the people you trust most turn against you, when love becomes cruelty, when family throws you into darkness? There is a story in the Qur'an of a boy betrayed by his own brothers, left in a well, abandoned in the cold. And the lesson of his story may change the way you see your own wounds forever. The desert sun had long set, and the night carried with it a strange silence that only betrayal can bring. Imagine the heavy footsteps of brothers returning home with false stories on their lips, while behind them a young boy sat in darkness, his heart pounding against the walls of a well. Yusuf, the child loved by his father, envied by his brothers, had been torn from safety by the very people who should have protected him. The rope lowered him, not to rescue but to abandon, and the shadows of the well swallowed his small frame. He looked up, searching for familiar faces, only to see them vanish with cruelty etched into their silence. The water at the bottom was cold, the stones damp, and the sky above seemed unreachable. Can you picture the crushing loneliness of that moment? Not an enemy's betrayal, but the betrayal of blood, of family, of those who share your home and your history. This was not the wound of strangers. This was the wound of brothers. Now, pause and ask yourself, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most? By a friend who turned into an enemy? By family who twisted love into jealousy? By people who pretended to care while secretly tearing you down? Betrayal is a wound unlike any other. It is not only the loss of trust, it is the collapse of your very foundation. The ones you thought would lift you are the ones who throw you down. The ones you loved most are the ones who rip your heart apart. And in that pain, you whisper to yourself, how could Allah allow this? Why would He let me be broken by the hands of those closest to me? But let us look at Yusuf's story again. In the darkness of the well, he was not abandoned. The Qur'an tells us that Allah revealed to him a promise, a whisper of destiny, that one day he would remind his brothers of their deed while they would not even recognize him. What does this mean? That even in betrayal, Allah was already writing a story of honor, that the well was not the end but the beginning of a journey that would elevate Yusuf beyond imagination. The betrayal that was meant to destroy him became the pathway to his greatest rise. And so comes the verse, indeed, with hardship comes ease. Quran 94:6. Not after hardship, not far from hardship, but with hardship. At the very moment betrayal struck, ease was already written alongside it. At the very moment Yusuf felt abandoned, the seeds of his future honor were already planted. Do you see the depth of this promise? It means that your own betrayals, as crushing as they feel, are not the end of your story. They may very well be the soil in which Allah is planting your elevation, but this requires you to ask yourself something radical. Do you believe betrayal is proof that Allah has forsaken you? Or could it be that betrayal is Allah's way of redirecting you, stripping away false supports so that He can place you exactly where He wants you? Many people think betrayal means weakness, but what if it means purification? What if it means Allah loves you too much to let you stay in comfort built on lies? What if the well you are in is the womb of your destiny? Reflect. Have you not seen people who were betrayed, abandoned, or humiliated, only to rise later with strength that no one could take away? Have you not heard stories of people who lost everything, only to find Allah had given them something greater? This is the pattern of Qadr. The betrayal you face today may be the very reason Allah will honor you tomorrow. Write in the comments, "I trust Allah even through betrayal." Let this not just be words. Let it be your declaration that no betrayal will define your story, only Allah's decree will. Your comment may become the spark for another broken heart to rise, to trust again, to heal. This is not just writing under a video. This is your public statement of faith, your shield against despair, your step out of the well. Think about it. If Yusuf had never been betrayed, he would never have reached Egypt, never have entered the house where his patience was tested, never have been imprisoned where his wisdom was recognized, never have stood before the king where his destiny unfolded. The betrayal that seemed like a curse was in fact the door to everything Allah had written for him. What you call loss today may be the very bridge to the greatness you cannot yet see, but let us not romanticize the pain. Betrayal hurts deeply. Nights are long, tears fall endlessly, and trust feels impossible to rebuild. Yet the Quran does not deny pain. It sanctifies it by showing that with every cut comes a thread of mercy. With every wound comes a hidden ease. The question is not whether you will be betrayed. The question is whether you will allow betrayal to destroy you, or whether you will allow it to transform you into someone who trusts Allah more than people. And here lies the disruption. What if the betrayal you suffered is not your enemy, but your teacher? What if the wound you carry is the place where Allah is pouring His mercy? What if those who pushed you into the well unknowingly pushed you into the arms of Allah? Would you still call it destruction, or would you begin to call it deliverance? The next time you feel the sting of betrayal, remember Yusuf in the well. Remember the darkness, the cold, the abandonment, and remember the whisper of Allah's promise that greatness was coming. Do not let betrayal be the end of your story. Let it be the beginning. Let it drive you into sabr, into tawakkul, into certainty that with hardship comes ease. And here is something few people realize. Betrayal exposes not only the hearts of others, but your own. It shows you whether your trust was truly in Allah or in people. It strips away the illusion that safety lies in human hands, forcing you to build safety in the one who never betrays. And when you do, you will rise from your well not as a victim, but as a servant strengthened by divine promise. But betrayal is only one wound. If the well is a place of darkness, there is another kind of loneliness that goes deeper still, the kind that strikes when you are completely alone, abandoned not just by people, but by the world itself. And in that story, the Quran shows us a woman under a palm tree, crying out in despair, her heart shattered by solitude. And what Allah revealed to her may be the very comfort you need when you feel unseen and unheard. The desert was quiet, but inside her heart there was only storm. Maryam, pure and chosen, sat beneath the shade of a palm tree, her body trembling from the pains of labor, her soul drowning in despair. Sweat covered her face, her breath came in short bursts, her hands gripped the rough bark as if clinging to it might save her from collapsing into the dust. Around her, silence, no family, no friends, no hand to hold, no voice to comfort. She was alone, utterly alone, carrying a burden that no one else could understand. And in the midst of her agony, her voice broke through the silence, raw with pain. "Oh, I wish I had died before this and was in oblivion, forgotten." The words of a heart crushed not only by physical suffering, but by loneliness, by fear of judgment, by the unbearable thought of facing the world without anyone by her side. Have you ever felt that? To be alive but wishing you were invisible, forgotten, unseen, because the weight you carry feels too heavy and you cannot imagine anyone truly understanding it. You may not be under a palm tree, but you have been in your room at night, lying awake with tears streaming into the pillow. You have looked at your phone, scrolling through names, wondering who you could call, who might actually listen, only to close it again because you know no one will understand. You may walk through crowds, smile in conversations, laugh at the right moments, but deep inside there is a silence so heavy it feels like suffocation. That is the crushing loneliness Maryam tasted under the palm. And in that exact moment when her despair spilled from her lips, when she thought she had no one, came the voice of mercy. Allah sent comfort in the form of reassurance. Do not grieve, your Lord has provided beneath you a stream. Qur'an 19:24. A river of water flowed at her feet, cool and life-giving. Dates fell from the palm tree above, nourishing her body. At the moment she felt most abandoned, Allah Himself provided. At the depth of her despair, He revealed His nearness. Do you see the beauty here? When she thought she had nothing, He showed her that He was everything. But let's ask something uncomfortable. When you feel abandoned, when loneliness pierces your heart, do you think it means Allah has left you? Or is it possible that loneliness is not a punishment but an invitation? Could it be that when people walk away, when voices fall silent, when friends turn their backs, Allah is clearing the space around you so you can finally hear Him clearly, so that you can discover that His companionship is better, deeper, more lasting than the company of any human being? The world tells you, distract yourself, go out, keep busy, find someone new. But does that really heal loneliness? Or does it only cover it with noise? The Quran doesn't tell you to drown your solitude in distraction. It tells you to see solitude as the place where the soul meets its Creator most intimately. Think of Maryam again. She was not in a palace, surrounded by comfort. She was not smiling in celebration. She was in the wilderness, crying in pain, begging for death. Yet that was the moment Allah sent provision, reassurance, and mercy. What does that tell you? That your loneliest nights may be the nights when He is closest. That the tears you shed alone are seen by Him, counted by Him, treasured by Him. That your silence is not empty, it is filled with His listening. So reflect. Could it be that the loneliness you hate is the key to the closeness you crave? Could it be that the nights you feel forgotten are the nights you are most remembered? Could it be that the pain of solitude is actually the womb of transformation? If this is touching your heart, write in the comments, Allah is enough for my heart. Do not underestimate this act. These are not just words typed under a video. They are a shield against despair, a public declaration that no matter who leaves, you will not collapse because Allah remains. And if you feel the truth of this message, click on like as an act of sadaqah jariyah, so that someone else, maybe tonight, maybe crying right now, maybe whispering that they cannot go on, sees it and finds hope. Share this as well, because your simple action could be the rope that pulls another soul out of darkness. But here lies the disruption. What if loneliness is not your enemy but your teacher? What if the ache in your chest when no one answers your call is Allah inviting you to call on Him? What if the silence you hate is the silence where His mercy speaks loudest? Would you still see loneliness as punishment, or would you begin to see it as mercy in disguise? Take a breath, close your eyes. Imagine the palm tree above you, strong and tall. Imagine the stream of water flowing gently beneath you, cool and refreshing. Imagine Allah's voice, not harsh, not condemning, but tender. Do not grieve. Let those words wash over you. They are not just for Maryam. They are for you, right here, right now, in your solitude. Do not grieve, because He has provided for you more than you can see. Do not grieve because His nearness outweighs the absence of everyone else. And here is something that changes everything. Maryam's greatest despair was the stage for her greatest miracle. Alone, abandoned, and in pain, she gave birth to Isa, a prophet, and a sign of Allah's mercy to the world. What she thought was humiliation became elevation. What she thought was abandonment became her place in history. What she thought was the end of her life became the moment the world would remember forever. Could it be that your loneliness too hides a miracle? Could it be that your darkest solitude is the very place where Allah is preparing something that will one day bring light to others? So when you feel forgotten, whisper to yourself, I am not alone, Allah is with me. When the nights feel endless, remember Maryam's tree and stream. When the silence feels unbearable, let it be filled with dhikr, with Qur'an, with whispered dua. Because loneliness is not emptiness, it is an invitation to the most intimate companionship, the companionship of Allah. But if solitude exposes the heart, guilt crushes it. Loneliness says, you are forgotten. Guilt says, you are unforgivable. And that next wound, the wound of regret, of shame, of feeling too dirty to be loved by Allah, is one of the heaviest burdens a soul can carry. Yet in the story of Adam, the first human, lies a prayer that can turn shame into salvation. and that revelation may challenge everything you believe about sin and forgiveness. Adam opened his eyes in a place no human being had ever seen before: paradise. Imagine the beauty: rivers flowing beneath trees whose shade never fades, fruits within reach, a peace that no earthly heart has ever fully tasted. He was given everything, a home prepared by Allah's mercy. And yet, with one choice, one slip, everything shattered. The command had been simple: do not eat from that tree. But whispers came. Shaitan promised him eternity. Whispered of kingship, stirred the desire to have more than what was already perfect. Adam reached out, his wife reached out, and they tasted what was forbidden. In that moment, the bliss of paradise turned into the heavy weight of guilt. Their nakedness became visible. Shame wrapped around their bodies. Fear gripped their hearts. They covered themselves with leaves, trembling before the gaze of the Lord they had just disobeyed. Pause here. Do you feel the echo of that story in your own life? You had moments when Allah gave you blessings, when you felt at peace, when you promised yourself you would not fall again. But then came the whisper, the temptation, the moment of weakness. You did what you swore you would never do, and the instant it happened, shame crashed down on you. You looked at yourself in the mirror and thought, what have I done? How could I disobey the one who gave me everything? Adam's story is not just history. It is the mirror of your own battle with sin, regret, and the crushing feeling that maybe you are too stained to be loved again. Adam could have run from Allah. He could have hidden in denial. He could have blamed his wife, his enemy, the environment, anything but himself. But instead, his lips released a prayer that still echoes across centuries: Our Lord, we have wronged ourselves, and if you do not forgive us, we will surely be among the losers. Qur'an 7:23. In these few words lies the key to transforming guilt into redemption. Notice, he did not justify himself. He did not minimize the sin. He confessed openly, admitted the fault, and threw himself at the mercy of Allah. And Allah, the most merciful, forgave. This is the moment you must look at your own guilt differently. People say time heals all wounds, but is that true? Does time erase the memory of your sin? Or does it stay, festering quietly, rising at night to choke you with regret? Time cannot forgive you. Only Allah can. Time cannot wash your soul clean. Only Tawbah can. The world may keep reminding you of your past, but Allah promises He loves those who repent. Could it be that your guilt, which you think is proof of being forsaken, is actually Allah's mercy knocking at your heart, pushing you back to Him? Think of the weight you carry, the lie you told, the prayer you abandoned, the moments you gave in to temptation, the doors you entered knowing they were haram. Each memory feels like a chain dragging behind you, and Shaitan whispers, it's too late, you are dirty, you can never be pure again. But let me ask, do you really believe that Allah, whose mercy is greater than His wrath, whose forgiveness stretches further than the horizon, would reject you while accepting Adam? Do you think your sin is bigger than Allah's mercy? Or is it possible that by holding on to guilt without turning it into repentance, you are actually believing Shaitan more than you believe Allah? Here lies the turning point. Adam sinned, but his repentance became his salvation. Shaitan sinned, but his arrogance became his destruction. The difference is not in never falling, it is in how you rise after you fall. Will your guilt lead you to despair, or will it push you to cry out, Our Lord, we have wronged ourselves? This is the moment where guilt becomes either a prison or a doorway. Which one will you choose? I want you to declare it openly in the comments. I return to Allah. Do not think this is small. This is your public stand. Against the whispers that tell you you are unforgivable, it is your act of defiance against despair. Let the world see that you are not hiding, you are choosing redemption. And if you feel this truth in your heart, let it settle in your fingers. Write it as a witness that you seek His mercy. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine standing where Adam stood. Imagine the weight of disobedience on your shoulders. Imagine the shame of facing the one who gave you life. But then, imagine His voice. Not filled with anger, but with mercy. He is the most forgiving, most merciful. Do you realize what that means? It means your past is not a death sentence. It means your regret is not wasted. It means that every tear you shed for your mistakes is a seed of mercy, and Allah waters those seeds until they bloom into forgiveness. But here is the wow moment you may never have considered. The very sin of Adam, the very mistake that filled him with regret, became the doorway for all of us to exist on. Earth, to know Allah through struggle, to be honored with the chance to repent and rise higher than angels. What felt like the worst moment of his existence became the stage for Allah's greatest mercy to unfold. Could it be that your greatest shame hides within it the soil of your greatest growth? Could it be that what you think ruined you is what Allah will use to raise you? Every scar, every failure, every regret can either be the story of your destruction or the story of your redemption. And that choice is in your hands right now. Your sin does not define you, your repentance does. Adam's fall did not make him the enemy of Allah. His tawbah made him beloved. Your fall does not make you hopeless. Your return makes you chosen. So tonight, whisper it. Even if your voice trembles, even if your tears blur your vision, our Lord, we have wronged ourselves. Forgive us, or we will be among the losers. Let this be your shield against despair. Let it be your rope out of shame. Because the truth is simple. Guilt is not meant to bury you. It is meant to break you open so mercy can pour in. But what if loss is deeper than sin? What if it is not your past mistakes that crush you, but the empty chair at the table, the silence of someone you loved who is no longer here, the dream that shattered in your hands? That is the next wound we must face, and it takes us to the story of a prophet who endured the stripping away of everything, yet still found hope. And what he discovered about pain will change the way you see your own suffering. Ayub was a man who once lived surrounded by blessings that most people can only dream of. His health was vibrant, his body strong, his mind sharp, his lands stretched far, his wealth was plentiful, his children numerous and full of life. He was respected in his community, admired for his gratitude, loved for his kindness. When people spoke of him, they didn't only mention his prosperity, but also his heart that was constantly in remembrance of Allah. He was a man whose success was not corrupted by arrogance, yet life can change in an instant, and what defines us is not what we have when our hands are full, but who we become when those hands are suddenly empty. Imagine this. Slowly, one by one, the lights in Ayub's world began to dim. His body, once healthy, became a prison of pain. His muscles weakened, his skin withered, his bones ached. Illness clung to him day and night, draining his energy until every movement became a reminder of fragility. Then came the loss of wealth. The fields that once yielded abundance grew barren. The herds that once multiplied vanished, and the prosperity he managed with gratitude dissolved before his eyes. And perhaps the heaviest wound of all, his children, the joy of his heart, were taken. One by one, the voices that filled his home with laughter fell silent. Can you imagine walking through a house that once echoed with life and now carries only echoes of absence? In those moments, most of us would cry out in bitterness, questioning why, demanding answers, feeling abandoned. Many around Ayub did exactly that. Whispers spread. If he suffers so much, surely Allah must be displeased with him. Others distanced themselves from him, unable to bear the sight of his weakness. The man once admired became the man forgotten. But Ayub's lips did not curse his fate, nor did his heart accuse his Lord. Instead, with patience as deep as the ocean, he whispered, "Indeed, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful." Qur'an 21:83. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. He did not deny his pain. He did not pretend the suffering was not real. He acknowledged it. Adversity has touched me. This is crucial because sometimes we think faith means suppressing our emotions, hiding our tears, pretending everything is fine. But the Quran shows us that real faith is honesty with Allah, admitting the wound while trusting in His mercy. Ayubi teaches us that your tears are not a betrayal of faith. They are a form of worship when they lead you back to Him. Now let's bring this into your life. What have you lost that still aches inside you? Was it someone you loved whose absence feels unbearable? Was it health you once took for granted, and now every morning feels like a battle with your own body? Was it a dream, a career, stability, or even your sense of self-worth? Maybe you carry grief so heavy that even when you smile, you feel it pressing on your chest like a stone. Society often tells us to move on quickly, to distract ourselves, to pretend. But tell me honestly, does distraction heal a wound, or does it only silence it for a while? Here comes a polarizing question. Do you really believe that loss is a punishment? Or could it be that loss is the stage upon which Allah wants to write the most powerful chapter of your faith? Think about it. If Ayyub's suffering was punishment, would Allah have immortalized his patience in the Quran? Or is it more accurate to say that loss was the very place where his greatness was revealed? Perhaps what you see as proof of Allah's displeasure is actually proof of his nearness, because he only tests the ones he loves deeply. Let's go even deeper. Notice how Ayyub's dua is structured. He doesn't focus on what was taken. He doesn't list his losses. Instead, he shifts attention to the attribute of Allah. You are the most merciful of the merciful. This is a blueprint for you. When your life feels shattered, don't obsess over the pieces. Obsess over the one who can rebuild them. The Quran does not merely narrate his words. It invites you to repeat them, to make them the anthem of your own brokenness. This is where I want you to take a step of courage. Write in the comments, "My loss is not the end of me. It is my return to Allah." Let this not be just text on a screen. Let it be a declaration to yourself and to everyone reading that despair will not own you. Your loss is not your identity. Your faith is. And by sharing it, you may inspire someone else drowning in grief to lift their head and see that Allah is still near. But here is something few people reflect on. Ayyub was not only healed, he was restored. Allah returned his health, he gave him more children, he multiplied his wealth. The Quran says, Allah restored him with more than he had before. This is a divine pattern. Allah does not take without the intention of giving back in ways you cannot yet imagine. Sometimes that restoration happens in this life. Sometimes it is stored for you in the next, where every tear will be exchanged for light, every wound for eternal healing. Either way, no patience is ever wasted. No tear goes unnoticed. No loss goes unrecorded. So ask yourself, do you only praise him when he gives, or will you still bow your head when he takes? Do you measure Allah's love by the presence of blessings, or by the depth of your connection with him in their absence? Because here is the reality many refuse to face. Anyone can say Alhamdulillah when the table is full, but only the chosen can whisper it when the table is empty. That is why Ayyub's name shines in history. His greatness was not in what he had, but in how he worshipped when everything was gone. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your pain, your loss, your emptiness, and then, with the trembling voice of your soul, whisper his words, "Adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful." Do you feel it? That shift in your chest, the weight that begins to lighten? This is the power of words from the Quran. They are not just stories of the past, they are medicine for the present. And just when you think the story of loss cannot go any deeper, consider this. Sometimes the trial is not about losing, but about facing something so terrifying, so much larger than yourself, that you feel powerless. What if the real test is not the emptiness behind you, but the giant standing right in front of you? That's when another story unfolds, of a young boy with nothing but a sling in his hand and faith in his heart, who faced an enemy that made entire armies tremble. And what Allah did for him can completely rewrite how you view your own strength. There are moments in life when the world seems to collapse in silence, not with an explosion, not with noise, but with an eerie stillness where you look around and everything you once held close has slipped away. Imagine waking up and realizing that the health you once carried like a quiet companion has betrayed you, your body aching with an unrelenting heaviness. Imagine your home, once filled with laughter and voices, now echoing with absence. Imagine wealth that once allowed you to support, to give, to live, evaporating until all that remains are memories of abundance. That was the reality of Ayyub, a man once surrounded by blessings, stripped down until he had nothing but his soul, his patience, and his Lord. The Quran does not shy away from portraying this raw pain. Ayyub was tested with layers of loss that would have crushed most men. First came his health. His body weakened, his flesh wasted away, his bones ached. What had once carried him through the world became a cage of suffering. Then his wealth, vast and generous, vanished. Fields went barren, animals perished. What once flowed with provision dried up before his eyes. And then his children, his heart, his joy, taken from him, leaving an emptiness no parent can ever truly recover from. How does a man endure such devastation? How do you even breathe when everything you love is gone? The whispers of people around him added to the weight. Some said, if he suffers so much, surely Allah has abandoned him. Others avoided him, unwilling to sit with his pain. Society turned its face away, leaving him isolated in both body and soul. Yet in that darkness, in that crushing loss, Ayub did something extraordinary. He did not claim he was fine. He did not pretend to be invincible. He turned his face to Allah and whispered words that still echo centuries later. Indeed, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. Qur'an 21:83. Pause here and notice the depth of those words. He acknowledged his pain. Adversity has touched me. He did not deny it, did not mask it, but immediately he shifted to Allah's mercy. Not, I deserve this, not why me, but you are the most merciful of the merciful. His dua teaches us a truth that society often hides. Your pain is not proof of Allah's anger. Your tears are not weakness. Your suffering is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is the stage on which Allah reveals the hidden strength of your faith. Think of your own life. What have you lost that still burns like an open wound? Was it someone you loved, whose absence haunts every day? Was it your health, leaving you feeling betrayed by your own body? Was it financial stability, where every bill feels like a mountain? Or was it something less visible? Confidence, identity, a dream you once nurtured but now lies shattered. We often hear phrases like, time heals all wounds. But tell me honestly, has time healed your pain, or has it simply taught you how to hide it better? The Quran teaches us something radically different. It is not time that heals, it is turning your wound into a dua, transforming your tears into an act of worship. Here comes a polarizing question. Do you truly believe that your loss means Allah has turned his back on you? Or is it possible that loss is the very tool he uses to draw you closer? If Allah immortalized Ayub's suffering in his book, could it be that suffering itself is not a sign of weakness, but of divine attention? Many people equate blessings with love and trials with anger. But if that were true, would the most beloved of Allah, his prophets, have endured the harshest trials? Reflect. Was Ibrahim thrown into fire because Allah abandoned him? Was Yusuf imprisoned because Allah had forsaken him? Or was Ayub left in pain because he was cursed? The Quran shows the opposite. Those trials were badges of divine selection. Now take a breath, close your eyes. Imagine standing before Allah with your wounds, your tears, your losses, and instead of hiding them, you open your palms and say, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. Can you feel the weight begin to shift, the burden lighten, even just a little? That is not your imagination. That is the power of surrender. I want you to engage with this moment. Write in the comments, my pain is not punishment. It is my path back to Allah. Let your words be a declaration, not of despair, but of defiance against hopelessness. Do not let your grief silence you. Make it a statement of faith that others will see, and perhaps your courage will awaken theirs. But the story of Ayub does not end in silence and despair. Allah did not leave him in the ashes of loss. Just as the dawn follows the longest night, Allah restored him. His health returned stronger than before, his wealth multiplied, his children were given back, and more. The Quran describes how Allah restored his family to him and the like thereof with them. It was not just healing, it was abundance after deprivation, life after death, mercy after pain. This restoration is a divine law written into existence itself. Allah does not take except to give, and what he gives often surpasses what was lost. Sometimes the restoration comes in this world. Sometimes it is delayed for the next, where every tear will be exchanged for eternal joy. But never, ever is patience wasted. So ask yourself, do you only recognize Allah's mercy when you are surrounded by blessings? Or can you also see it when you are stripped of everything? Do you only say Alhamdulillah when your table is full? Or can you whisper it when your table is empty? Anyone can thank Allah when the sun is shining. But the true lovers of Allah are those who praise him even under the storm. That is why the name of Ayub glows in history. His greatness was not measured by what he had, but by who he was when he had nothing. And perhaps the greatest secret is this: loss itself can be the seed of restoration. What if the emptiness you feel is not the end, but the soil in which Allah will grow something greater? What if your patience today is the very reason for your honor tomorrow? What if your brokenness is the evidence that Allah has chosen you to walk the same path as his prophets, to be refined, purified, and prepared for something beyond what you imagine? Let me ask you directly, Are you willing to see your pain as a doorway instead of a wall? Are you willing to let your grief teach you reliance instead of despair? Or will you continue believing the lie that loss is the end? Because here is a reality that cuts deep. Many people allow their pain to distance them from Allah, but the chosen allow their pain to bring them closer. Which one will you be? And just when you think you cannot bear anymore, remember the words of Ayub, not complicated, not lengthy, but powerful enough to shake the heavens. Adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. These words are for you. Make them your shield, your anchor, your rope back to Allah when everything else slips from your grasp. But loss is not the only trial. Sometimes it is not what is taken from you, but the sheer magnitude of what stands before you. Ayub's story teaches us about patience in emptiness, but what happens when the test is about facing something far greater than yourself, when the challenge is so enormous that it makes you feel like a speck, too powerless to even try? That is where another story unfolds, the story of a young boy with a sling in his hand and faith in his heart, who stood against a giant when armies trembled. And that story changes everything you think you know about weakness and strength. There are moments when the challenges before you feel so massive that you freeze. You look at your life, at the responsibilities, the obstacles, the enemies of your peace, and you think, I am too small for this. I can't do this. I am powerless. Have you ever felt that way? As if your heart is a tiny candle flame flickering before a storm that could extinguish it with one breath. This fear of being too small is ancient, written into the stories of those before us. And nowhere is it clearer than in the encounter of a young shepherd boy with a giant whose name was enough to make armies tremble. Dawood stood before Jalut, known to many as Goliath, a man so massive, so armored, so fearsome that even trained soldiers shrank back in terror. And yet it was Dawood, inexperienced and seemingly insignificant, who stepped forward. Why? Because faith redefines power. Because hope in the darkest of times transforms weakness into the very stage of divine victory. The Qur'an captures the essence of this scene with piercing clarity. How many a small company has overcome a large company by permission of Allah? Qur'an 2:249. This ayah is not just history, it is a lifeline for anyone who feels like their resources are too limited, their voice too quiet, their presence too insignificant to matter. Look at Dawood. He was not a warrior, he was a shepherd. He did not carry heavy armor. He carried a sling. He did not boast in his strength. He relied on Allah. And that reliance toppled a giant whose very shadow crushed men's spirits. Pause here. What are your giants? Maybe it is the giant of financial debt, staring down at you with threats of collapse. Maybe it is the giant of anxiety, whispering into your soul that you will never be enough. Maybe it is the giant of societal pressure, telling you that your faith is outdated, your modesty strange, your principles irrelevant. Or maybe your giant is internal, the fear of failure, the weight of expectation, the crushing voice that says, you are too small to matter. Do you see how this story is not ancient at all? It is happening inside you every day. Now here is the question that will divide hearts. Do you believe power comes from resources, or do you believe it comes from Allah? Because if you truly believe it comes from Him, then your size is irrelevant. Numbers are irrelevant. Weapons are irrelevant. The Quran insists, by permission of Allah, meaning victory is not about you, it is about Him. So why do we obsess over comparing ourselves to others, measuring our worth by wealth, appearance, popularity, or influence, when the only factor that matters is whether Allah's help is with us? Think about the soldiers who stood behind Dawood. They saw Jalut's towering form, his shining armor, his massive sword, and they thought, we cannot win. Fear paralyzed them. Yet the boy with no armor saw the same giant and thought, Allah is greater. What do you see when you look at your challenges? Do you see defeat written across them, or do you see an opportunity for Allah to display His might through you? This is where I need you to act. Write in the comments, my giant is not greater than my Lord. Declare it openly. Do not just think it, type it, because when you say it, you are not only reminding yourself, you are reminding others who feel powerless, showing them that belief in Allah is stronger than any giant before us. And if this truth has touched your heart, do not hesitate to press like and share this message. Spread it so that someone else trembling before their own Jalut may find courage in your declaration. Your engagement is not just support for this video, it is a form of dawah, a way of saying to the world, faith still stands, hope is still alive, Allah is still in control. But let's go deeper. Dawood did not just defeat Jalut. His act of faith opened the door to his future. That moment of courage catapulted him into leadership, into recognition, into the history of prophets. Do you see the hidden truth? Sometimes your greatest fear is actually the key to your greatest destiny. Sometimes Allah places a giant before you, not to crush you, but to elevate you. If Dawood had shrunk back, he would have remained a shepherd in obscurity. By facing Jalut, he became Dawood the prophet, Dawood the king. What if the challenge before you is not a curse, but the path to your honor? What if the very thing you dread is the ladder Allah is giving you to rise? Reflect. How many times have you underestimated yourself? How many opportunities have you rejected because you felt too small, too weak, too unqualified? Yet, the Qur'an reminds you, over and over, by permission of Allah. Your success does not depend on what you carry in your hand, but on who carries your heart. And here comes a revelation that few dare to embrace. Sometimes Allah allows you to face a giant, not because He wants you to defeat it with your strength, but because He wants the world to see that giants fall even before the weakest of hands when Allah wills it. Imagine this: the boy with a sling, overlooked by his own people, humiliated by the sight of an overwhelming enemy, suddenly becomes the instrument of victory. Doesn't that sound like you? The one underestimated, the one ignored, the one who feels invisible. Perhaps you are the Dawood of your time, waiting for the moment when Allah will prove through you that size means nothing and faith means everything. But let's not soften the truth. Facing your giant requires stepping forward. Dawood did not hide behind the soldiers. He walked to the battlefield. Faith is not an excuse for passivity. Tawakkul is not waiting for Allah while you remain frozen. Tawakkul is moving forward with full trust, even if your hands are trembling, even if your resources are tiny, even if your heart is racing. So I ask you, what battle are you avoiding because you feel powerless? What moment of courage are you denying yourself because you believe the lie of your insignificance? Remember this: the armies of Jalut had numbers, weapons, strength, and yet they lost. Dawood had Allah, and that was enough. So when you feel small, when you feel overwhelmed, let this ayah be the anthem of your soul. How many a small company has overcome a large company by permission of Allah? Do not just read it, believe it, live it, repeat it, until it replaces the whispers of defeat in your mind. And when you dare to face your giant, something else happens. Others around you find courage. Your act of faith ignites theirs. One person standing with conviction can awaken an entire generation. Maybe your step forward is not just about you. Maybe it is about inspiring those who watch you, those who need to see proof that Allah is greater than fear. But giants are not always enemies in armor. Sometimes they are responsibilities, burdens, expectations that press down on your shoulders until you can barely breathe. Sometimes the real battle is not with others, but with the crushing weight of what you are called to carry. And for that, another story begins, the story of a man chosen to bear the heaviest message in history, who trembled at the responsibility of revelation, yet was reassured by Allah that he was never abandoned. That is the moment where fear of powerlessness meets the assurance of divine companionship. Have you ever felt the sting of being mocked for what you believe in? The loneliness of being surrounded by people yet knowing deep inside that your faith isolates you from their approval. It is a feeling sharper than physical pain, to be ridiculed not for a mistake, not for an error, but for the truth that you carry. Imagine speaking from sincerity, offering light, only to be met with laughter, rolling eyes, dismissive smirks, or even outright hostility. This pain of standing alone in belief is not new. It echoes through the centuries and finds its most powerful example in the life of Prophet Nuh, who preached for centuries while being rejected by his own people. His story is not just history, it is a mirror reflecting the struggle of anyone who has ever tried to hold on to conviction in a world that prefers compromise. Picture Nuh alayhi salam calling his people day and night in public and in private, his voice weary yet unwavering. My people, worship Allah. You have no deity other than Him. His sincerity was met not with gratitude, but with scorn. They placed their fingers in their ears. They covered themselves with garments to avoid even looking at him. They belittled him, called him foolish, mocked his persistence. Can you feel that isolation? to pour out your heart, your warnings, your hopes, only to be answered with ridicule. Yet Allah immortalized his patience with a verse that remains timeless. So be patient. Indeed, the promise of Allah is truth. Qur'an 30:60. This is the medicine for the heart that trembles when faith becomes a burden to carry in the eyes of others. When you feel you are the only one praying at work, the only one holding to modesty among friends, the only one who refuses to compromise values, you are walking in the footsteps of Nuh. His centuries of rejection remind us that truth is not measured by numbers, but by endurance. Do you see how this cuts through a modern illusion? We live in an age obsessed with followers, likes, and approval. But the Quran is reminding you, Nuh preached for centuries, and only a few followed him. Does that mean he failed? No. It means the metric of success in Allah's sight is obedience, not popularity. So why do we chain our self-worth to the acceptance of people who cannot even guarantee their own salvation? Ask yourself honestly, have you ever felt embarrassed to speak about Allah in front of others? Have you hidden your prayer, softened your words of truth, or concealed your convictions because you feared ridicule? And here is the polarizing question. Is your silence really humility, or is it fear disguised as wisdom? Because the Quran calls you to patience and to trust that Allah's promise is true, not to hide the truth in the shadows of shame. Nuh's story reveals another hidden treasure. Isolation in truth is never true isolation. Allah was with him. The mockery of his people could not erase the companionship of his Lord. And if Allah is with you, does it matter who laughs against you? Who among creation has the power to diminish you when the Creator is sustaining you? That is why this verse is not just about patience. It is about redefining loneliness. You may feel isolated from people, but you are accompanied by Allah, angels, and an unseen reality that is greater than any human crowd. I want you to confront this in your own life. Write in the comments, "I will stand firm even if I stand alone." This is not just a sentence. It is a declaration of who you are, of what you choose, of the fact that your faith is not for sale. Do you have the courage to say it publicly? If you do, your comment may be the rope someone else grabs when they feel they cannot hold on. Do not underestimate the impact of your declaration. And if this truth has touched your soul, remember, sharing it is not just engagement, it is sadaqah. Press like and share this message so the reminder of Allah's promise reaches someone who may be on the edge of giving up. Be the reason they stay firm. But Nuh's story has a deeper, almost terrifying revelation. He warned for centuries. He endured rejection with patience. But there came a day when the decree of Allah arrived. The flood was not just water, it was justice flowing over a people who mocked truth until their mockery drowned with them. What does that teach us? That rejection and ridicule may last for years, but Allah's promise is inevitable. His help may feel delayed, but it never fails. His justice may feel distant, but it never disappears. And when it comes, it is unstoppable. Do you realize what that means for your life? The ones mocking you today will not define your tomorrow. The ones isolating you cannot cancel the destiny Allah wrote for you. Their laughter is temporary, but Allah's promise is eternal. When you feel crushed by isolation, remember, Nuh built an ark in a land where no flood existed, mocked for a ship that made no sense. Yet when the skies opened and the earth gushed forth, that ship became salvation. What looks like your humiliation today may become your honor tomorrow. What looks like foolishness, in their eyes may become proof of your foresight when Allah's decree arrives. So I ask you, do you want to live for their laughter, or do you want to live for Allah's promise? One leads to temporary comfort and eternal regret. The other may bring temporary loneliness but eternal honor. Which path will you choose? Because neutrality is an illusion. You are already choosing, every time you hide or every time you stand. Nuh's centuries of rejection remind us that faith is a marathon, not a sprint. You may not see the fruits of your patience immediately, but every act of endurance is recorded, every tear is noted, every sigh is heard, and in the end, Allah's promise will unfold in ways you could not imagine. The arc of your patience may not make sense to anyone else, but when the floods of life rise, it will be your shelter. This is why the Quran gives you the antidote. So be patient. Indeed, the promise of Allah is truth. Let these words sink into you, not as theory, but as a shield. When you feel mocked, repeat them. When you feel alone, breathe them. When you are tempted to hide your light, declare them. They are not just words. They are divine oxygen for suffocating hearts. And here is the paradox that shocks many. Sometimes isolation in faith is actually protection. Being cut off from those who ridicule you saves you from being swept away with them. Being mocked may actually mean you are walking the right path, because truth has always been resisted, always been ridiculed, always been lonely. If the world embraces your faith too easily, perhaps you have diluted it. The sharpness of mockery may be proof of the sharpness of your sincerity. So do not fear being alone. Fear being without Allah. Do not fear their ridicule. Fear losing the companionship of your Lord. And remember, you are not alone. You are walking a path carved by prophets, illuminated by revelation, accompanied by angels, and sustained by the one who promises that his truth always prevails. But the Quran does not leave us in the pain of isolation. It transitions us gently but powerfully to another scene, another burden, another weight. The crushing sense of responsibility that can paralyze a soul, like the weight of revelation descending on the Prophet Muhammad. From isolation to responsibility, the journey of faith continues, showing us that every burden has its secret mercy, every heaviness its hidden hand of Allah. Have you ever felt the weight of responsibility pressing so hard on your chest that even breathing feels like a burden? The kind of weight that keeps you awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you are enough, if you can carry what has been placed upon you. Some responsibilities are chosen, work, commitments, ambitions, but others are given to you without asking. The role of being a parent, a sibling, a provider, a leader, or even just the one person others rely on when everything collapses. That suffocating heaviness of knowing that people are depending on you while you silently doubt your own strength is a pain many people hide but rarely speak of. And yet, this very human experience was known by the most beloved of all creation, Prophet Muhammad, in one of the most overwhelming moments of his life. Imagine the scene, the cave of Hira, silence surrounding him, when suddenly the angel Jibreel descends with the very first words of revelation. Read, a single command, yet so heavy it shook his entire being. He trembled, not knowing what was happening to him. He ran back to Khadija, his heart pounding, his body shivering, overwhelmed by a weight he never asked for. And it is in that moment of human vulnerability that Allah later reveals words of pure reassurance. Your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has he detested you. Quran 93:3. Can you feel the mercy pouring through those words? They are not just for him. They are for you, for every heart crushed under responsibilities that feel too big to handle. There is something raw and unfiltered in the story of the Prophet when revelation first descended. It shatters the illusion that prophets were untouchable or unshaken. Instead, it shows us that even the greatest human being to walk the earth trembled under the weight of responsibility. And if he, the chosen one, felt fear and doubt for a moment, then what does it mean for you? It means your shaking hands, your late-night tears, your whispered du'as asking for strength. None of them mean you are weak. They mean you are human, and that Allah is close. Responsibilities today may not look like carrying revelation, but for many they feel just as heavy. The young person trying to provide for their family after losing a parent. The single mother holding together a household on fragile shoulders. The student carrying the expectations of generations. The leader making decisions that could make or break a community. The pressure of responsibility can feel unbearable, almost like a mountain pressing against your chest. But remember what Allah said, your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has he detested you. Do you see how powerful that is? The verse doesn't say the responsibility will disappear. It says you are not abandoned in carrying it. The weight may remain, but Allah is carrying you while you carry it. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. When you feel crushed under responsibilities, do you assume Allah has left you? Many people do. They think the heaviness is punishment, that the silence of heaven means rejection. But the Quran confronts this lie head-on. Being burdened does not mean being forsaken. The Prophet himself was reassured of this. So why do you think your struggles mean you are abandoned? Could it be that what feels like crushing responsibility is actually Allah's way of showing you that he trusts you more than you trust yourself? That he placed this burden on your shoulders because he knew you could carry it, not because he wanted to destroy you. Responsibilities test patience and trust more than comfort ever could, and here lies the secret. When you feel you cannot take another step, the verse becomes your anchor. Your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has he detested you. It is almost as if Allah is whispering directly to you, "I see you, I know the heaviness you carry, and I am with you." That whisper changes everything. So how do you live this truth? You begin by releasing the illusion that you are carrying everything alone. Tawakkul, trust in Allah, is not passivity. It is not letting go of responsibility. It is walking with it while knowing you are upheld by the one who owns the heavens and the earth. It means you keep moving, you keep trying, but you also breathe differently. You breathe knowing that the outcome is not in your hands but in His. Think about it. The Prophet, trembling and overwhelmed, was calmed by Khadija's words reminding him of his virtues, and then by the words of Allah reminding him of His nearness. That combination of human support and divine reassurance sustained him. So who is your Khadija? Who reminds you of your worth when you forget? And if you cannot find that person, will you allow the Qur'an itself to be your reminder? Because every time you recite, "Your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has He detested you," you are letting Allah Himself remind you of your value. Here is where the polarization comes in. Many people today believe that responsibility is purely a curse, something to run away from, something that drains your soul. But the Qur'an flips that belief. Responsibility is not punishment, it is trust. If Allah placed something heavy on your shoulders, it means He saw strength in you that even you cannot see. So the real question is, do you want to spend your life running from what Allah entrusted you with, or do you want to embrace it with His support? I want you to write in the comments, "Allah has not forsaken me." Say it with conviction, even if your heart trembles. Because the moment you declare it, you are aligning yourself with the truth of revelation. And every comment declaring it becomes a testimony of faith, a reminder to others scrolling through this video that they too are not abandoned. Someone may read your words and find the courage to breathe again. Now let's bring this into your daily life. When responsibilities feel unbearable, take a pause. Not to escape, but to realign. Whisper this verse before tackling a difficult task. Write it down and keep it visible where you work. Teach it to your children, so that when they grow up facing their own mountains, they too will know they are not forsaken. This is not just coping, it is transformation, because suddenly the unbearable becomes bearable, not because the weight lessens, but because your perspective changes. And here is the stunning revelation. What you think is breaking you may actually be shaping you. The Prophet emerged from that moment of trembling not weaker, but stronger. Revelation began in fear, but unfolded into guidance that transformed the world. What begins as a burden can end as a legacy, and perhaps the responsibility you carry today is not just about you. It may be the seed of something that will bless generations after you. But wait, there is something even more powerful hidden in this journey. The burden of responsibility is not only about carrying weight, it is about discovering companionship. For when you feel overwhelmed, you find Allah nearer than ever, and that nearness is the treasure hidden beneath the heaviness. And yet the Quran doesn't leave us only with the weight of responsibility. It takes us further into an even more intense confrontation. What happens when responsibility collides with injustice? What happens when you do everything right, but oppression still surrounds you? That is when the fire of Ibrahim becomes a lesson, a blazing story of divine protection in the face of human cruelty. And the transition from weight to fire is not coincidence. It is Allah teaching us that even when responsibilities burn, His mercy can make the flames cool. Have you ever witnessed injustice so raw that it burned inside you like fire, yet you felt completely powerless to stop it? The kind of injustice where lies seem to triumph over truth, where oppression looks stronger than integrity, where those who stand for what is right are mocked, threatened, or even destroyed. That helplessness eats away at the soul, whispering, "What's the point of resisting? Evil always wins." And yet history has shown again and again that oppression is loud, but Allah's justice is louder. Think of Ibrahim, standing alone against a nation intoxicated with idolatry and arrogance. He tore down their false gods, exposed their delusion, and for that he was sentenced to a death so horrific that even thinking about it chills the heart. He was to be burned alive. Can you imagine the terror of being tied up, dragged through crowds cheering? Your destruction, while a fire larger than any human had ever seen was prepared for you. They built it so big, so blazing, that no one could approach it. They used a catapult to hurl Ibrahim into the flames. From a worldly perspective, it was hopeless. The fire would consume him in an instant. No human intervention could save him. The world had turned its back, and even nature seemed to conspire against him. But in that exact moment, when all creation abandoned him, the Creator spoke. Allah said, "O fire, be coolness and safety upon Abraham." Qur'an 21:69. The flames that should have devoured him turned into peace. The very fire meant to destroy him became his shield. What does this teach you? That even when injustice looks invincible, Allah can change the laws of nature for the sake of His servant. This is not just a story of the past, it is your story too. Because maybe right now you feel like you are in your own fire. The injustice might be in the form of lies spread about you, or the cruelty of a boss who abuses their power, or the oppression of entire systems that suffocate the poor, the voiceless, the forgotten. Or maybe the fire is more personal, an abusive relationship, a betrayal that stripped you of dignity. Whatever your fire is, doesn't it feel like you are trapped, like escape is impossible? And isn't there a voice inside that says, if Allah really cared, He would not let this happen? But the Qur'an flips that thought on its head. Allah may allow you to be thrown into the fire, but He never allows the fire to destroy you. Instead, He makes it coolness and safety. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Many people believe that if they are good, Allah will protect them from being harmed at all. But the Qur'an challenges this belief. Ibrahim was righteous, yet he was thrown into the fire. Maryam was righteous, yet she felt despair beneath the palm tree. Yusuf was righteous, yet he was thrown into a well and then into prison. Do you see the pattern? Being close to Allah does not mean being spared from the fire. It means being protected within it. The miracle is not in avoiding trials. It's in surviving them with your faith intact, and sometimes even stronger. So let me ask you, are you mistaking your fire for abandonment when it might actually be your stage for divine protection? Now take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine your own fire, the situation that feels unbearable, unjust, suffocating. Now overlay it with the eye. Verse, "O fire, be coolness and safety." Can you feel how everything changes? The fire is still there, the trial is still real, but suddenly it is not destruction, it is transformation. Because with Allah's decree, what should break you can instead protect you. What should destroy you can instead refine you. Let's bring this closer. Think about the times in your life when you thought you wouldn't survive, but you did. Think about the betrayals that should have broken you, but instead made you wiser. The losses that should have emptied you, but instead deepened your connection with Allah. That is your fire turning into coolness. That is Allah's promise in action. And here I want to ask you something bold. If you believe Allah can turn fire into safety, declare it publicly. Write in the comments, "Allah makes my fire cool." Let your words be a testimony of faith, not just for you, but for someone else drowning in despair. Your comment might be the rope that pulls them back to hope. And while you're at it, if this message touched your heart, click like and share this video. Not as a routine, but as an act of spreading Allah's mercy. Think about it. One share could be the reason someone on the edge of giving up finds light again. Here is the reframe. Oppression thrives when believers lose hope. Tyrants win not because they are powerful, but because people stop believing Allah's justice will come. But every time you remember this verse, you are resisting despair. Every time you declare it, you are telling the world, yes, the fire is real, but so is Allah. And that resistance shakes the foundations of injustice, because no oppressor can defeat a heart that trusts the decree of Allah. And here is the twist. Sometimes the fire is not meant to harm you at all. It is meant to expose who stands with you and who abandons you. For Ibrahim, the fire revealed the emptiness of his people's idols. For you, it may reveal who your true allies are, or perhaps it may strip away illusions you once held about people or systems. The fire can be painful, yes, but it also clarifies. It burns away illusions until only truth remains. But there's something even more shocking. Sometimes Allah lets you enter the fire not to show you His power, but to show others. The miracle of Ibrahim was not only for him, it was a message to the entire nation that their power meant nothing compared to Allah. And maybe, just maybe, the way Allah will deliver you from your trial will become a message for others who are watching silently, wondering if Allah is still present in this world. Think about that. Your survival might be someone else's proof of Allah. Your ability to walk out of the fire unharmed might be the spark that reignites faith in someone who was ready to give up. So the next time you ask, why me? Why this trial? Consider this. Perhaps you were chosen not just to endure, but to inspire. And yet, we cannot stop here. Because the Qur'an does not just want you to marvel at Ibrahim's survival. It wants you to embody his trust. He didn't argue when he was thrown into the fire. He didn't scream, "This is unfair." He surrendered completely, placing his tawakkul in Allah, and that surrender unlocked the miracle. And that's where your story intersects his. Will you surrender, or will you resist the very one who can turn your fire into peace? The answer to that question could transform your reality, because once you choose surrender, you begin to see your fire differently. You stop asking, "When will this end?" and start asking, "What is Allah teaching me here?" And that shift is liberation. But as powerful as this is, the Quran takes us even further. Because if Allah can turn a blazing fire into safety, what else can He transform? What about the deepest fear of all, the fear of death itself? If He can make flames cool, can He not also make the grave a garden? This is where the story of the youths of the cave takes us, into the unknown, where even death is not an end, but a transition. There is a silence that no sound can break, a silence that descends when you are alone with your thoughts, and nothing distracts you from the reality that one day your chest will no longer rise with breath. Have you felt it? That trembling awareness of mortality, the fear of an end you cannot control. Death is the most certain reality of human existence, yet it remains the most terrifying unknown. You may face hardships, betrayal, loss, humiliation, but death is different. It is final. It does not negotiate. And in that recognition, people either numb themselves with distractions, or they collapse into despair, or they wrestle with a question their hearts cannot silence. What happens after the last breath? Perhaps you have asked it too, late at night, staring into the dark ceiling. Will it be light or darkness? Will it be peace or terror? Will I simply vanish? Or will I stand before my Lord, trembling? And there is something else beneath this. Fear, not just fear of punishment or annihilation, but the fear of the unknown itself. The mind cannot picture it, so it paints shadows, and those shadows suffocate. But Allah, in His mercy, did not leave us drowning in that question. He gave us in the Qur'an not only commands and laws, but stories that reach into the deepest chambers of the soul, stories that turn fear into trust. Among the most striking is the story of youths, the people of the cave, young believers whose faith placed them at odds with a tyrannical society. They were not wise elders hardened by time. They were not leaders with armies at their backs. They were simply young hearts ablaze with conviction that Allah alone deserves worship. And for this conviction, their lives were threatened. Picture them, a small group, fleeing through rocky paths, leaving behind their families, their homes, their culture, every comfort they knew, their hearts pounding, their steps echoing against stone. Behind them, the weight of a society enraged. Before them, nothing but barren wilderness and the gaping mouth of a cave. Imagine the desperation of that moment, hiding in the cold, damp shadows, with nothing but their faith as shield. No food for tomorrow, no plan for survival, just surrender. And yet, Allah transforms what seems like defeat into triumph. He describes them with honor. Indeed, they were youths who believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance. 18:13. Look at the sequence. First, they believed. That was their decision, their stand. Then Allah increased their guidance. Their act of faith was small by worldly measures, retreating into a cave, powerless. But that small act opened the doors of a miracle. They slept, not for hours, not for days, not even for years. They slept for centuries. Time itself bent to Allah's command. While kings died and empires vanished, they rested, and when they awoke, it was as if only a day had passed. Do you see it? The cave is a mirror of the grave. The sleep of the youths is a rehearsal for death itself. What terrifies us most, the loss of time, the loss of consciousness, is transformed in this story into safety, into divine preservation. What the world calls end is revealed as mere transition. Death, through this lens, is not a prison of darkness but a pause in Allah's mercy. Reflect on your own fears. How many times have you trembled at the thought of death? How often have you avoided funerals, avoided conversations about mortality, because they tear open the fragile illusions of permanence? But pause. What if your fear is misplaced? What if death is not the horror you imagine, but the mercy you cannot yet see? When you lie down each night, you surrender to sleep. Do you resist it? Do you panic? No. You accept it, even long for it when exhausted. And yet, sleep is the closest experience to death you encounter daily. Your soul departs, your body rests. You awaken only because Allah wills it. So why do we trust him with sleep, but doubt him with death? The prophet said that sleep is the brother of death. Every night is a rehearsal for the grave. Every morning is a rehearsal for resurrection. The fear that paralyzes us is not the reality of death itself. It is the forgetfulness of Allah's promise. He is the one who said, "It is Allah who takes away the souls at the time of their death, and those that do not die, he takes during their sleep. Then he keeps those for whom he has decreed death and releases the others for an appointed term." 39:42. Ask yourself, if Allah can protect the people of the cave for centuries, untouched by decay, untouched by fear, do you really believe he cannot protect you in your grave? If he can stop time for them, do you doubt he can make your death a rest and your awakening a mercy? Here is where the polarizing truth confronts us. Many say death is the end. They say there is nothing beyond, that faith is illusion, that all you have is this fleeting world. But the Qur'an shatters that. It insists death is not extinction, it is continuation. Not annihilation, but meeting. So the real question is not whether there is something after. The question is, are you preparing for it? Or are you distracting yourself until it comes like a thief in the night? I want you to declare your stance. Write in the comments, "I believe death is not an end, but a meeting with Allah." This is not just a sentence. It is a shield for your soul, a declaration of faith that pushes back against despair. And when others see it, perhaps they too will find courage to face what once terrified them. Now, imagine yourself in that cave. Feel the chill of the stone walls, hear your breath echo, smell the damp earth. And then imagine surrendering your fear, whispering, "My Lord, I trust you." That act alone reshapes destiny. Because trust in Allah does not remove death, it transforms it. Suddenly, the unknown is no longer an abyss, but a doorway. The darkness is no longer emptiness, but protection. And the end is no longer end, but beginning. Breathe deeply, close your eyes. Visualize yourself lying in the grave, not suffocated, but embraced by Allah's mercy, as the cave embraced those youths. Imagine angels greeting you, saying, "Do not fear nor grieve, but receive glad tidings of paradise which you were promised." 41:30. Let that sink into your bones. Let it dismantle the lies of despair. Because the reality is this: what looks like annihilation to the world is, in Allah's decree, the path to everlasting life. So the next time the silence of night grips you with fear of death, remember the cave, remember the sleepers, remember that your soul rests in the hands of the one who has always protected, always guided, always brought light after darkness. And ask yourself honestly, do you want to meet him in fear or in longing? This is not everything. There is a layer of hope buried in this truth that few people dare to face. Because once you embrace that death does not end but transition, a secret is revealed. The real tragedy is not dying. The real tragedy is living without preparing for the beauty that follows. And when that realization hits, everything about your choices in this world begins to change. The heart that has traveled with me through these words has faced valleys of fear, mountains of despair, and storms of loneliness. Yet here you are, still breathing, still listening, still searching. If you made it this far, it is not an accident. It is not coincidence. It is Allah Himself pulling you, reminding you, whispering to your soul, "Indeed, with hardship comes ease." 94:6. You carried the burden of anxiety, of betrayal, of regret, of loss, of feeling powerless, mocked, crushed by responsibility, wounded by injustice, haunted by death. And in each pain, Allah placed a light. Every verse you heard, every story from the Qur'an you entered, was not ancient history. It was Allah speaking to you, right here, right now. These are not tales of others. These are mirrors for your own soul. Think about it. If Yusuf could rise from betrayal to honor, if Musa could face the sea and find it split, if Maryam could cry alone and receive a stream under her feet, if Ayub could lose everything and still find mercy, if Dawood could bring down Goliath with nothing but faith, if Ibrahim could be thrown into the fire and walk out untouched, if Nuh could preach alone for centuries and remain steadfast, if the prophet could carry the heaviest responsibility and not be abandoned, if the people of the cave could sleep centuries as a sign of Allah's care, then what about you? Do you really believe your darkness is beyond His mercy? Do you believe your pain is bigger than His promise? You see, the Quran is not a book on a shelf. It is a lifeline in the storm. Every verse you heard today is meant to cling to your heart like armor, to plant seeds of sabr and tawakkul where despair tried to root itself. If your chest still feels tight, let that tightness remind you of why Allah revealed His words in the first place, to liberate you from the prison of fear and to anchor you in certainty. Because true peace does not come from the absence of problems. It comes from the presence of Allah in the middle of them. And now I want you to take this moment not as an ending, but as a transition. You have been fed with reminders. Your soul has been stirred. Your wounds have been exposed and touched by the light of the Qur'an. The only step left is to turn that stirring into a supplication, because what is the use of hearing Allah's words without responding? The Qur'an calls, and the heart must answer. So prepare yourself, still your thoughts, quiet the noise around you, breathe slowly, lift your hands if you can, close your eyes if you need to, feel the weight of your pain, your fears, your regrets, your unanswered questions, and now imagine laying them one by one at the feet of your Lord, because you are not speaking into the air. You are speaking to the one who shaped your heart, the one who sees every tear before it falls, the one who knows what you hide and what you scream. O Allah, we turn to you with trembling hearts. Remove the knots of anxiety that strangle our souls. Replace them with the tranquility that only your remembrance can bring. Strengthen our sabr when trials surround us. Increase our tawakkul so that we never see ourselves as alone. Forgive us when we stumble. Embrace us when we feel unworthy and guide us when the path ahead feels shrouded in fog. O Allah, grant healing to every heart that is restless. Grant light to every soul that feels trapped in darkness. Grant certainty to every believer who whispers, I fear the future, and show them that your promise is greater than their fears. If you are listening to this, know this truth. If your lips moved with this dua, if your heart leaned into these words, it means Allah invited you to speak to Him. That is not random. That is not trivial. That is an answered call before you even asked. If you reach this point, it means Allah is working in your heart. It means He heard you. It means you are not abandoned. And so, as you open your eyes, do not return to life as if nothing changed. Something has shifted. A seed has been planted. Protect it. Nurture it. Carry this hope into tomorrow. And let your first act of faith be public, visible, firm. Write in the comments, I trust in Allah. Let this be your declaration, your shield, your stand. But do not stop there. Share this message with someone who is suffocating in their pain, because you never know, your simple act of sharing could be their lifeline, their reminder, their way back to Allah. That is Sadaqah Jariyah, a charity that never ends. And if you found healing here, do not let it stay with you. Pass it forward and subscribe here, because this is not entertainment. This is your spiritual refuge. This is where you will always find words from the Qur'an to hold you up when the world tries to drag you down. This is where your iman will be nurtured, week after week, where you will never walk alone. By subscribing, you are not just following a channel, you are joining a community of believers who refuse to let despair have the last word. And listen carefully, if this message touched you, what comes next may change your life even more. Do not leave without watching the next video on your screen, because it may be the very answer you were asking for in your silent prayers. Don't ignore it, don't postpone it, because the continuation of your healing, of your hope, of your journey with the Qur'an might be waiting for you there. So write it in the comments. I trust in Allah. Share this with someone you love. Subscribe so you never lose this connection, and hold on to this verse as you leave. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. 94:6. Let it echo in your heart until the fear fades, until hope rises, until you know deep within, Allah never abandons, never.